Hey, what's up guys and welcome back to Anime King. And today I'm going to be giving you part 5 of What If Naruto was personally trained by Kurama. Remember to get this one to 100 like as usual. Share this to all of your friends in your social media platform. And also guys, stay in tune for a brand new episode of What If Naruto had Cosmic Energy over on Anime King 3, which I do hope that you guys enjoy. And also a new episode will be coming over on Anime King 2, so stay tuned as well guys. And remember, if you're new and this is the first time you hear my voice, I have 2 other channels. All links will be down in the description, so go ahead and check out Anime King 2 and Anime King 3. And if you're new to go ahead and click all of those subscribe button and join the Anime King family. And thank you for all of your help and your support. And yeah, without further ado, what do you say we begin this new episode? Start the intro. So, the last spot we left off, as Naruto was reading the file that Baki gave him. As his eyes went wide, they were going to attack the leaf. He quickly made his way towards the Kazekage mansion. Making his way there, he knew that something was wrong. The man smelled all wrong. The envoys dropped down as they knew that Naruto's sense of smell was unique, and he was never wrong with his nose. So they asked the Kazekage for authorization, but the man's eyes then turned slitted for a moment. As he jumped through the window, the envoys chased after him. Time passed as the group was still heading to Konoha to participate in student exams despite their Kazekage being presumably dead. They were not supposed to show weakness, as Gar was a bit saddened by that. So Naruto decided to cheer him up by dunking Teiwa in the river, and she ended up pulling him in as well. With that, they made their way to Konoha. Hinata saw him. As she screamed out his name and came over, Teiwa was a bit angry at that. Naruto also told her to calm down. He was always on her side, so that ticked her off for many reasons. As they made their way into the village, Naruto left the village when he was in the academy, as he was never a shinobi, so he was not a missing nin, as he was like a civilian. So with that, he was told to come to the Hokage's tower as he made his way there. As Naruto broke down and started to cry as he apologized for leaving without saying anything. Well, if he had, Hiruzen enough took him back, but Hiruzen said he knew where Naruto was all along, as he was just happy that Naruto leave the village and find a new home out there that suit him better. It was then that Tasume burst into the office. The woman looked at Naruto, as she then looked at Teiwa. She offered for them to stay at her compound. That kind of surprised Naruto a bit, but he accepted. So with that, they decided to go around the village a bit, sightseeing, as Tasume spoke to Hiruzen about Minato and Kushina. It seems like her and Kushina were good friends, and now she will do what she can to help her boy. After all, she wanted to adopt Naruto, but because he had the 9 tails, he couldn't be placed in one clan. As Naruto told the both of them to go after, he spent some time at the monument. As he was heading back, he bumped into Kakashi, seeing that the both of them were reading their books, as Naruto knew who he was, seeing that he went on the mission, but they weren't spotted as the Kazekage had told them to watch over Leaf Ninjas to see what they were capable of. But they were quite pathetic in Naruto's regard, seeing that they didn't even know how to tree climb at their age. So yeah, they were quite pathetic. But he simply paid that no mind, as he watched over the mission. Kakashi had passed out along with the others, as Tazuna was the only one that saw Gaara and Naruto drop down, as they slaughtered all the bandits that got to what came with. So with that, Naruto headed off, as he met up with Kiba. Kiba was kind of surprised that his, mother offered for them to stay there. As Naruto simply shrugged, he didn't know the reason why. But Kiba decided to, bring him along. So yeah guys, so basically that's what left off. You guys can switch across to the place and check it out for yourself. So what do you say begin this new episode? Naruto entered the compound along with Kiba as he noticed a massive open land inside, much further than dogs to train or play in. Also, on every door there was a flap for dogs to enter, and they were all suspiciously large. Naruto saw why when he saw Inuzaka clan member walking with his canine. The thing was large. as the dog made its way up to the owner's chest. Kiba barely seemed to notice the size of dogs around him, while he was used to it, as Naruto glanced towards Akamaru, as Akamaru was still a pup, as he was riding on top of Kiba's head. They made their way to the center, where the largest building resided. Immediately, the smell of dog and wet fur washed over Naruto's senses, almost making him gag. He managed to hold it in so he would not seem rude, as he quickly adjusted to the overwhelming smell. It was quite strong though. Suddenly, 3 large dogs rushed past both him and Kiba through the doggy flap door. They were quickly followed by a young woman, maybe 3 or 4 years older than him and Kiba. She had the same clan markings as him and Tatsumi. Naruto took a wild guess and guessed that this was the Hana that Kiba told him about, as she smelled like different variation of dogs. Well, she did work at the vet, so that was kind of expected for her to smell like different dogs. But she was less, feral like the other Inuzakas, as she lacked the shaggy hair and the slitted eyes like the others. She wore a high collar coat, and Naruto could not see what she wore underneath. Naruto felt a bit awkward. Why did he even think that in the first place? As Hana turned as she looked towards the two of them. "Hey Kiba, have you seen Mom?" Kiba shook his head. "Nah, I was actually looking for her myself," he said. At that moment, Tatsumi chose to appear around the corner. "Ah, Naruto, you're here. Good," she said. "Your friend showed up earlier and said that you'll be coming later." She looked across towards Kiba. "Ah, you met my son," she said, as she then looked towards the other side. "And it seems like you met my daughter as well," as she smirked, showing off her canines as she did, as her canines kind of matched her own when he showed them. "It seems like I'm missing out on a family reunion," said Tatsumi. Kiba quickly took the opportunity to voice his question. "Mom, who is this guy?" he said. As Naruto looked at the boy, he couldn't fault him for him being so direct. Tatsumi on the other hand seemed to expect the reaction, and it seemed like she was prepared for it. "The village hidden in the sand are our allies, Kiba. I thought it would be better for them to stay with us, in somewhere more comfortable than those dingy barracks outside teams normally get." Kiba still seemed a bit suspicious, but he relented under his mother's gaze. Pack mentality was strong after all, and it was obvious here who was the alpha of the house. Hana on the other hand only seemed amused by the answer as she smirked, seeing her brother back down. "Well, it was nice meeting you, Naruto," she said, and with that, she headed off to catch up to the dogs. But Tatsumi caught her arm as she moved by. "Hana, would you be so kind to show her friend to the escorters?" she said. Hana eyed her mother curiously, looking for a reason for this request in her mother's eyes. She nodded slowly, and Tatsumi smiled happily. As Naruto walked over to Hana and tried his best smile, but it was still a bit awkward. Hana simply shrugged and motioned for him to follow her. Once they were out of range, she struck up a conversation with him. "So, do you have any idea why my mom has taken such a shine to you?" she asked. As Naruto shook his head, no. "So," said Hana, "what is the sand like?" "I've been on a few trekking missions, but I've never been into any in wind country," she said. "Well," said Naruto, "it's hard to describe, but I think dry and hot sums it up the best," he said. As Hana shared his smile as they made their way, as Naruto decided to ask a question that had been bothering him for a while now. "So why do you guys use actual dogs and not summons?" he said. Hana looked at him like the answer was so obvious, like the question wasn't even worth asking. "Easy," she said. "Summons are good and all, but nothing can develop a bond like the one that we have between our companions." She smirked. "Let me demonstrate," she said, as she pulled back her sleeve. There was a seal on her shoulder that looked like a whistle. She bit her thumb as she wiped some of her blood on it, as Naruto heard a high-pitched whistle came from her shoulder. It was so high that Naruto dropped to the ground as he clutched his hands over his ears in pain. Once the ringing cowered down, Naruto looked at her as Hana looked at him with curiosity and also a bit shocked. "A little warning next time," he said, as he tried to say it jokingly, but given the fact that he was still clutching his ear a bit, it took away most of the humor. "Sorry about that," she said. "Humans aren't supposed to be able to hear it," she said. "It is specifically for our canines, and it's specifically tuned to my companions. so not even the other dogs can hear it, she said. Again, she stared at him as she was intrigued by his strange reaction to her call in seal. Why did it affect him? As Naruto simply looked sheepishly down at the ground, as the three dogs that ran off earlier came rushing back to Hana's side. Don't worry about it, said Naruto. My ears are just a bit sensitive, he said. Hana smiled, but on the inside she was still curious about his sensitive hearing. Well, you can say that again. That call was over 40,000 hertz, she said. As they walked towards the guest quarter in silence, both of them completely forgetting about Hana, about to show him something. The dogs, which Naruto was now sure that they were wolf, walked behind them, their tongues sticking out happily. Hana let him inside. The moment he came in, he was tackled down to the ground by a red blur. Coming out of his daze, he looked up at Teiwaya's angry face as she looked down at him. Her eyes were trying unsuccessfully though to burn through his forehead with her willpower alone. As Naruto continued to look up at her with his normal cocky grin that he knew would drive her completely insane. What the hell, shithead? You said that you were right behind us, and yet you're half an hour late? Naruto simply shrugged. He was feeling a strange sensation with her over him like this, he didn't know why. And the fact that she was sitting on his chest didn't help at all. She needed to get off of him before. She's trying to say that she was worried. Gaara's voice came out as Teiwaya turned, so that Naruto wouldn't see her cheeks that were currently red at the moment. Like hell I was, Sandy. I just don't like to be left out of a loop, she said. The fact that she wouldn't look at him while she said that brought a smile to Naruto's face. He loved when people missed him. Well, not that he wanted them to feel sad that he wasn't there, but he was happy that someone was at least thinking about him. That brought great joy to his heart. Teiwaya, said Naruto, you can get off me now. She blushed as she quickly leaped back, realizing the position they were in. As she made her way to one of the rooms, not even glancing towards Naruto, face point straight forward, as Gaara had a amused look on his face as he went to retire to one of the rooms as well. Hana, on the other hand, was at the doorway as she was barely holding in her laughter after watching the awkward, hilarious affair. As she walked off laughing, as Naruto wondered what was so amusing about that. He simply shrugged it off as he made his way to Teiwaya's room as he climbed in bed with her. She didn't say a single word as he wrapped his arms around her waist. As she snuggled back into him, all of their problems forgotten. Every morning was like a blank canvas between them. They had no secret, no argument that would carry over to the next day. That was how it was with them. Some might call it an odd relationship to share with a friend, but they would never exchange it for anything. Time skip. As Naruto felt something as he slowly opened his eyes. Something was tugging at the boxers that he was wearing. Something from the inside. His face turned red when he realized what it was. As Naruto started to slowly slip away from Teiwaya, as she grumbled about him taking away her heat, but he quickly made his way to the shower, as he made sure to stay in there until this went away. As he didn't know what was going on, usually, Teiwaya was the one that he talked to about these kind of things, but he didn't think that this was, well, appropriate. As he really didn't know what to do. He didn't thought he had another friend, one that would probably understand the situation. He still felt a pang of guilt keeping something from her, but this was embarrassing, and yeah, he was going to keep it so to avoid that embarrassing moment. He didn't know why he was embarrassed, but he felt like he should be embarrassed. As he made his way out of the shower, as he saw that Teiwaya barely moved, she just wrapped the sheet around her to make up for Naruto's warmth. In her mind, he was still better than any blanket. He was like her own personal heater. The thought brought a smile to her face as she snuggled back in the bed, trying to take in as much of his heat as possible before it was gone. Little did Naruto know that he wasn't the only one that would have a strange sensation that morning. Although she had the talk with Temari, Teiwaya didn't understand why it was happening. She neglected to tell Naruto because honestly, she thought that he wouldn't really care about that. After her equally long, if not longer shower, she stepped out of the bathroom with a towel wrapped around her body. The benefit of Naruto being a morning person and she not being a morning person at all meant she always had the room to herself when he got ready so early. She expected him to be outside training right now. She simply shrugged it off. Well, Naruto was next door as he was talking to Gaara, who was getting embarrassed as the moment dragged on. Naruto, do you really think I'm the best person to talk this about? said Gara. As Naruto raised an eyebrow, as he looked at Gara in a curious manner. Gara just sighed. He loved his friend like a brother, but sometimes he could be a real idiot. I mean, you're the one that read those perverted books. Shouldn't you know more about this than me? Said Gara. Hey, my books aren't perverted, you know that, right? Naruto, did you listen to me? I mean, don't you read another part of those books? Naruto nodded, as a small blush came on his face as he thought back to some of the heated moments in his small, favorite series. So, does that explain how everything works? Gara asks. As Naruto started to focus, he always schemed over those scenes, just picking through the barest of details when it comes to those. Suddenly, his eyes shot wide open as Gara looked at him. Oh, said Naruto. So that is what the author is always talking about, he said. He smiled as he felt pleased with himself for working it out on his own, until he actually realized what he just worked out. His face turned completely red, realizing what his little friend meant when he pressed up against stay awhile like that. Oh crap, Gara. You have to help me control it. Gara opened his eyes wide. What the hell do you mean control it? Naruto opened his mouth ready to say something, but he paused, as he didn't exactly know what to, say about that. As he flopped back down on Gara's bed. Man, what am I gonna do? He said. I need to talk to somebody about this. But who? Meanwhile, a large man with white spiky hair suddenly sneezed. Some foxy lady must be talking about me to her friends, he said. He giggled to himself as he started to write down into his journal. The research was progressing wonderful today. Meanwhile, Naruto had to resign himself as Gara didn't know more than him, so well, they didn't know what to do about that. He tried to clear his mind by training, using a harsh physical training to keep his mind clear and calm. He was rather upset. Today had started out so good, and now he was as confused as the day he remembered when TY started to change. That is how Hana found him, as the scent of his sweat joined her over. She wasn't afraid to say that the sense of sweat and hard training aroused her a bit. After all, her family was a lot similar to dogs. So she was surprised to find it was Naruto, as he was up in a tree doing pull-ups. As he was upside down, he was stuck in his feet to a high branch, using chakra as he pulled his body up, making his head go up to his knees. She watched him for a few minutes as he went up and touched his toes, his head reaching up to his knees, as he kept on doing it over and over. It was rather impressive. Well, she had seen similar workouts from my guy. Well, at least Naruto had some better fashion sense than my guy. Naruto flipped out of the tree as he landed, as he spotted her for the first time. Oh, hi Hana, he said. Sorry if I disturb you. She looked up from her thoughts, surprised, as she was surprised that he was right next to her. With her enhanced senses, she should have known if he gotten so close. She played it off well though. Oh no, Naruto, she said. I was just curious to see who was training back here. As she looked him over curiously. Don't you have the first round of tuning exams today? Why are you training? She asked. He simply shrugged as he grimaced as his scent finally caught up to him. Never miss an opportunity in the morning, he said. As he started to walk away, as he was going to take his second shower this morning, he didn't pause, as he blushed a bit. Hey, Hana, he said, as he looked rather nervous. Yes, Naruto, she said. As he was still blushing, Kiba said that you're a vet, so you work with animals, right? Like a medic. She nodded as she wondered where this was going. Actually, I'm a medic name. I'm just a vet as well because it suits our clan, she said. Humans are just like animal after all, she said. Well, what does it mean when... As his face became so red, it looked like he was about to boil over. As he started to motion towards his lower region. She didn't get what he meant at first, but she didn't get it. As she had to fight back a laugh. Oh, don't worry, pup, she said. That just means that you're growing up. He seemed rather thoughtful of that, but he didn't notice what she called him. Hey, I'm not a pup, he said. As Hana simply chuckled, as she walked past him ruffling his hair. But you are a pup, she said. So, said Naruto, that's it? It's just natural? She chuckled again as she had to remind herself how young Shinobi started their duties. It seemed like a rather odd thought, given that she was just 4 years his senior. Well, they learned these things at a young age. 4. The Inuzakas. Perfectly, Hannah said. Come and see me sometime, and I'll explain it to you. She left Naruto feeling rather awkward as he made his way to get another shower before the three of them had to go to the first round. Time skip, they walked through the building, marveling at how many ninjas were here, except for the Hidden Stone and Kumo. They walked up the stairs and Naruto was about to walk into a corridor when Teiwai grabbed him from behind. What are you doing, Shitechi said. Room 301. Naruto looked at her oddly as he saw the kids huddled up at the door. Yeah, this is room 301. Teiwai simply glared at him and Gara let loose a rare smile. You idiot, that's obviously a genjutsu, she said. Honestly, after all this time, you think that you could see the basic ones like that? Dumbass. He rubbed the back of his head. Now that it was pointed out, he could see the genjutsu placed on the doorway. The problem for him is that his senses were rather heightened, so when genjutsu was placed on him, it made it feel even more real. It was one weakness to his usually, adapting ability. Yeah, sorry, said Naruto as she slapped him on the back of the head for being an idiot, not really in the mood for fighting. She wouldn't admit it, but she was excited as Naruto was. After all, this was the first time she would be able to test her skills to fully evaluate herself. She didn't really give a damn if she made Chunin or not. After all, the next Chunin exams were in the sand, she would pass those. But here she just wanted to evaluate herself to see where she stands. As they made their way to the current room this time, they enter into a crowded classroom. No one bothering to turn at new arrivals. After all, the classroom was packed to the rim. The three of them shrugged as they made their way where Konkuro, Temari, and their teammate was sitting. They took a seat next to their fellow sandmen and casually wait for the proctor to arrive in the classroom. As Naruto looked around, he spotted the Konoha Genins, and there were quite a lot of them. He counted 12 rookies and a few others that were obviously retaking the exam from past failures. As he noticed one of the older ones with glasses and white hair laid out card in front of the rookies. With his decent sight, Naruto could pick out that they were information cards, but on what he couldn't really pick out. What he did know was he didn't really like that young man. He smelled too familiar. It was weaker and secondhand, but there were snakes. Stench of snake and underground in the man, the one in the glasses. He tried to listen in on their conversation, but there was too much talking, as he could only pick out some fragments of their conversation. But everyone got a show as a strange, hunched over Sound Shinobi took a swipe at the Leaf Ninja. Naruto watched curiously as he dodged a blow, but yet still his glass cracked and he keeled over, clutching onto his ears. As Naruto gets Sonic Attack, he will have to worry about that one. As he glanced towards the Sound Ninja, they were told to be aware of them. There were no solid evidence involving Orochimaru. However, he wanted the Sand and the Sound to ally to take down Konoha, so he was definitely involved with them. After all, it wasn't so easy to get a village involved, if not talking to the Kazekage or something like that first, or the Daimyo. They certainly live up to their name, as they really did use sound-based attacks. He wasn't the only one, as Teiwai was also looking over at the gauntlet on the boy's arm. He was about to comment on that in a sarcastic manner, when suddenly a large smoke bomb erupted in front of the room. Alright, you baby-faced degenerates, pipe down and listen up. It's time to begin. I am Ibiki Marino, and I will be your proctor for this exam. Your worst enemy, he said. Time skip. When everyone was sitting in their proper places away from their teammates, Ibiki began the test after explaining the rules. As Naruto looked at the questions, there were just 9 of them, but each of them looked like they were suited for envoys, not possible tunings at all. And what was all that crap about point deduction if you were caught cheating? Why wouldn't they just disqualify you? That was really strange. But after a few minutes, Naruto started to notice San appearing right beside his paper. Quickly, it formed into words, then it formed into sentence, as the answers are right there for him. He smiled proudly, reminding himself to thank Gara after all of this was done. No doubt he was using his third eye technique to gain the answers and sending them to the both of them. Finally finished, he tapped his foot on the ground lightly as the sand dispersed, flowing back to Gara's gourd. As he leaned back, and he didn't have to worry, as he noticed a few teams got disqualified after they were caught cheating. The fit amount of time as he watched as the numbers started to wheedle out by threes. If one person was caught, their entire team was disqualified. Yes, if they were caught many times. As Naruto wondered how Conqueror and Timur did, and also the Konoha teams. The clock then showed that the 45 minutes were up as Ibiki explained the rules for the next question, the final 10th question. Many of the Genins were outraged, so was Naruto, but he didn't really say anything. Drawing attention to himself at this point would be a waste of time, but if he knew his friends were good, Teiwaya was pissed off as well. Even so, they calmly waited, not taking a beat, as many teams started to get forfeited from the exam. It was unfortunate they were using psychological warfare on the Genins. Well, Baki was quite reversed in that subject, so Naruto and his team has went through that a lot of time before. So that is why they didn't move, they didn't twitch or anything, as he just stayed perfectly calm. As they waited out, the classroom was barely the size of what it was in the beginning. As Ibiki then told him with the last question. As Naruto grinned as he passed, he placed his foot on the table. The window then burst open, showing Ibiki in glass. 4 kunai pinned up a large banner as a woman was right in front of it. Purple hair, trench coat, and a mesh shirt underneath, not leaving much for the imagination, and a rather short skirt. Heads up, boys and girls, this is no time for celebrating. I'll be your next proctor, Uncle Midarashi, she said. As most of them stared at her, as Naruto gave her a thumbs up for the good entrance. Uncle looked towards him as she smirked. At least one of them understand. Right then, are you ready for the second test? Good. Now follow me, she said. Ibiki appeared from her around the side of the banner, looking at her rather irritated. You're early again, he said. Uncle didn't look pleased to hear that, and the look on her face, it made Naruto laugh. As Uncle recovered quickly though, as she looked around the room, with a smug look as she smiled to herself. Good work for once, Ibiki. Only 12 teams remaining. Ibiki sent her an irritating glare. Alright, maggots, Uncle said. You think you're great because you survived this one little test? Well, by the time I'm through with you, there will only be half of you left. I'll let your squad leaders know where you're supposed to meet up tomorrow morning. Dismiss! And with that, everyone that survived the first test filed out of the room. Naruto, Teiwaya, and Gaara were among the last. As Naruto passed by Uncle, he couldn't help but compliment her. Great entrance, he said. Uncle narrowed her eyes at the little punk that was mocking her, but she noticed a laugh on his face. It seems like he meant it, well, for real. She wasn't quite sure how to process it at first. No one really paid attention to her little antics and pranks. In fact, most people just ignored her completely. Thanks, kid, she said. Don't get too cocky though. You're not gonna like me if you make it through the second exam, she said. As Naruto simply smiled. We'll see about that, he said. Before she could react, he was already at the door, with Uncle watching him leave. So is that all it takes to get under your skin nowadays, Uncle? Said Ibiki. Blonde hair and a smile. She spun around instantly, her eyes flaming. Oh, shut it, Scarface, she said. And like a flash, she made her way through the window. That was one strange kid. Funny, but strange, Ibiki said. He then turned as he groaned, realized that Uncle left the banner up, as he ordered one of the Chunins to tear it down. That woman was going to be the death of him. Time skip, everyone stared at the ominous field. Trees, large like buildings, large animals that were very, very large. What the hell were they feeding these things? And an ominous feeling was leaking from the forest in front of them. Uncle smirked as she took in the pleasure of seeing the scared look on the Jenny's faces. That was until she saw the blonde and his team. Oh no, a forest with plenty of animals and water. How will we survive? Said Naruto as he had his eyes closed talking. Something whizzed past him as it nicked his cheek. As a little bit of blood flowed down his cheek, it was a kunai. With an impressive show of speed, Uncle appeared behind him. So we got a tough guy, huh? She said. Well, you should be worried because you're more than animals in that forest that are out for your blood, she said. As Naruto simply vanished. Before she could react, a kunai was placed in her cheek, creating a small line like the same one that was on Naruto's cheek. At least she thought it was a kunai, but when she turned, she saw that it was a pen. But she understood the significance. She let down her guard, and he was in a position where he could have wounded her. She didn't know whether to feel embarrassed, furious, or a bit turned on. After all, the Inuzakas weren't the only one that were weird when it came to these kind of things. She snatched the pen though and snapped it to one hand, but he simply grinned at her. She glared at him, but he didn't look affected, not even a single bit. Finally, a chilling smile came on her lips. Nice one, kid. You know, I like you. The tuning at the gates, sweat dropped as they knew of Uncle's reputation. As Uncle smiled, I guess you got me, she said. They knew that she didn't behave this way. As she made her way back to the front as she started to explain, TY came over and smacked Newton back of the head, but still she was amused by what he just did. As Uncle watched him with a smile, that was someone to watch out for, as she could tell. She decided that for the first time since he started this, well, she did the first time, but it wasn't that really good. But she was going to watch from the tower's camera to see what was going on, especially to keep an eye on this blonde brat. There was also something nagging in the back of her mind, someone who he reminded her of, but she just couldn't place it no matter what. Shithead, we're supposed to keep our skills on the wraps until the last round. Now everyone know that you're fast. Naruto simply smiled at Teiwaya, as her lips started to twitch into a smile. He could always make her smile no matter what. Oh come on, said Naruto. They haven't seen anything yet. Time skip, all of the teams signed their death waivers, as all of them were given their scroll, as they stood out of the gates waiting for the exam to begin. As they were waiting, Uncle suddenly dropped out of nowhere. But they didn't really react. Gar wasn't sure if it was because Naruto smelled her coming, but he did not look up from his book at all, as he read a few more lines before he folded the page, as he closed the book in a slow manner that always drive Baki Sensei insane. He always did that to annoy someone of a higher rank than him, always, doing it in a rather slow pace. Oh great, here I thought that you guys were going to be entertaining, but I find out you read those same stupid books as Kakashi. Uncle seemed really disappointed, until Naruto reached behind him into a small pouch on his hip. Uncle tensed, seeing their last encounter, but he pulled out another copy of the book in his hand. As he threw it towards her, his uncle caught it, as she looked like she might catch a disease from just holding on to it. You should try reading it, said Naruto. You might actually enjoy it. And with that, he seemed to completely dismiss her as he returned back to reading his book. Uncle couldn't believe how this genin was acting around her. If she didn't know any better, she would think that he was Kakashi's personal clone, but that was not it. There was some nagging feel in the back of her head, telling her to remember something in his face. Why did it look so familiar? Why? She decided to ask Kakashi about it, seeing that both of them share so many similarities. As she took off, not even noticing that she was still holding on to the present that Naruto gave her. Naruto, on the other hand, looked at her with his corner eye as he was smirking. They couldn't get time to talk because of the buzz. The gate suddenly opened, and with that, they sprang into the forest rather quickly. Despite most ninjas completely going off to the trees the moment the gates open up, the sand team stay on the ground, as they were in their element to what Gaara was. And Naruto and Teiwaya adopted to it a lot as well. After all, in the sand there was mostly sand, not much trees to jump across, even though they were also efficient in jumping through trees. As Naruto could smell the stench of wet grass that was heading right towards them, at the same time he was keeping tabs of all the shinobis in the vicinity. Gaara's stand came up to protect them from the animals that were stupid or brave enough to attack them. After a while though, the animals seemed to get the idea that coming near the human child with a container was a really bad idea, so they started to stay away, just watching from the shadows. As the group was taking it rather slow as they made their way, they only had to speed up when he sensed the grass ninjas moving towards another set of shinobis, most likely a leaf. He smirked. This was perfect. Now the two teams would just fight each other, and they could pick off the winner, weakened as they might be. It was not the most honorable thing to do, but they were ninja. There was not really much honor in the job. As he felt the two groups draw closer, from the way they moved, Naruto could tell that the Konoha team was completely unprepared for the attack. Naruto frowned as he smelled. Two of the grass ninja took off, only one of them heading towards the group. That was strange. He thought they might be forming some plan, but they just kept on moving further and deeper within the forest. Yes, that was rather strange. As he informed his team of it, as Teiwaya mulled it over, seeing that he was a tactician of the group. So with that, they made their way closer to find out what exactly was going on. What they saw surprised them, A single grass ninja female, she was up in the tree, glaring at the three Genins, and they seemed to be frozen in fear. The Leaf team had the same Uchiha that they saw in the wave, the pink-haired girl, and the boy with the high coat with the black glasses. The glasses boy was unconscious, barely propped up by the trembling girl, as her eyes were fixed on the grass ninja. As Naruto got another scent as he sniffed, his eyes narrowing to a dangerous glare. From the grass ninja, no matter how it was hidden beneath genjutsus, he could still smell that same vile stench. As Orochimaru noticed, so it is the boy with the impressive nose. He looked across at Gaara. Gaara was still unaware who this was. And the fatherless one, he said. A strange long tongue came out of his mouth as he licked his lips in a rather disgusting way that put the team off. Gaara narrowed his eyes, wondering who was brave enough to call him that, and how did they even know, as Naruto was finding it hard to stay calm with the guy that murdered his friend father so close. Orochimaru, said Naruto. It was more than a growl than anything else, as he tried to stop himself from leaping towards the man. As Naruto knew that this was one of Konoha's most dangerous missing in, there was no way he could take him on by himself. But Gaara snapped as his gorge exploded, all of the sand rushing out towards Orochimaru. Orochimaru leaped out of the way as he watched as the sand ripped through the forest area. It didn't stop there though, as the sand lashed out towards Orochimaru again. He had to force himself to twist and turn so he could escape the onslaught that tried to swallow him up whole. Gaara's eyes were burning, his mouth was pulled up in a snarl that matched Teiwaya on her worst days as he was angry. As his sand did his work, he walked around in the clearing, eyes never leaving Orochimaru as the sand went around the trees. As Gaara's sand was slamming to every tree around, tearing them down until no more trees were left for Orochimaru to jump into. As the next sand whip lashed out towards Orochimaru, but the man didn't bother to move. All Naruto saw was a glint of steel as the stream of sand parted, curving around the murderer. Naruto saw why emerging from the man's mouth was actually a sword that split the sand straight down the middle. But Gaara couldn't see from where he was, he just kept the barrage spraying towards Orochimaru. Know that he had the man in his sight, he would never let him leave alive. But Orochimaru vanished in a burst of speed as he appeared behind Gaara, ready to strike his sword right through his heart. His sand was fast enough to block the strike before it pierced his heart. It only slowed the blade down though, as the blade was powerful, but more sand came and overwhelmed it, stopping it from breaking through any further. Orochimaru leaped back as a spike came from the sand that would have impaled his head right through, as he smirked. As Naruto saw the opportunity for him to move, but before he did, a purple and white blur came in front of him, stopping him. Don't get involved, this is my fight. He attacked me. As Naruto looked at the Uchiha, annoyed and dumbfounded, as he noticed his eyes, it was the Uchiha, with a single Tomo and two in one of the others. What are you talking about? Don't you know who that? Naruto was cut off as one of Gaara's sand whips smashed through the tree that Orochimaru jumped into above them. As Naruto leaped back and Sasuke leaped forward to attack Orochimaru. As Naruto saw the impressive display of taijutsu from Genin, he definitely wasn't that good when they saw him in the hidden wave. Even though Orochimaru dodged every single blow that came his way, they still came rather hard and they came fast as well. Eventually, Orochimaru got really bored, or he was feeling hard pressed. Yeah, it was bored. As Orochimaru backhanded Sasuke, Sasuke slammed into a tree trunk, wincing in pain as he struggled to get up. Orochimaru was about to finish the job, or what he planned, but he saw a movement out of the corner of his eye. He dodged as Naruto's fist came towards his torso, as Naruto twists and launched his leg towards him, forcing Orochimaru to leap back. As Orochimaru then slipped into Naruto's guard and grabbed his leg, he twisted him and tossed him towards the ground. As Naruto twists and landed on a tree trunk that was broken off, as he shot himself forward, Orochimaru dodged once again, noticing that the Genin hand looked like it wanted to slap him. He soon understood why though. As he felt his face, there was 4 claw marks. Naruto was under a transformation, but that didn't mean that the claws weren't still there. As Naruto looked down, Orochimaru stood there, half of his face hanging off in tatters. Below it was his real face, with those golden eyes, and his skin pale. That is most impressive, Naruto. It's been a long while since anyone came close to hurting me like that, Orochimaru said. It really is a shame about your tenant. Otherwise, you'd have made the perfect candidate for what I have planned. His smile grew even more evil, and his eyes stared into Naruto's soul itself. As it is though, Orochimaru said, I have plans for young Sasuke here though. So, if you don't mind. As his neck elongated at an impossible manner, the thing shot across the clearing, fangs aimed towards Sasuke's neck. As Orochimaru beat down, as he applied the seal as he pulled back, only to snarl in anger as he saw red hair. Teiwaya's eyes widened, her hands shaking, as the kunai that she was holding on to fell out as she started to fall. Naruto shot forward as he caught her, as she was shaking in his arms as she was unconscious. What did you do? Said Naruto. As Orochimaru looked at him. Really now? Is that the thanks I get? If she survives, think of it as a gift. The best she will ever receive. He only had enough chakra to place one curse mark every 2 days. So Sasuke will have to wait. Well, it didn't matter, he has more opportunities. Even though he was in deep thought, Orochimaru still dodged the fist of sand that came crashing down. As Orochimaru realized that he had, well, no more use for anyone here, as he couldn't mark Sasuke yet, and that girl got in his way, so it didn't matter at the moment. Well, if she survived, she would perhaps be a good candidate. That is, if she survived, perhaps she could be some use. And with that, he started to melt away into the ground. Gaara was about to chase after him when he paused. As he saw Naruto clutching Teiwai to his chest, he gazed back to where Orochimaru was going, before he turned and rushed over towards Naruto. What he saw was not good. Teiwai was pale, unnaturally so, as she was shaking. As her eyes were squinted shut, her hands were clenched into fists like it might draw blood. Gaara looked down helplessly, not knowing how he could help her. We need to get her to the tower. As Naruto rushed over to where Sasuke was as he searched her pockets, but there was no scroll. He turned in anger towards the last member of the team, the pink-haired girl, that just watched in slight fear as she couldn't do anything. Where is your scroll? He said. The trembling girl looked at him. Where is it? Said Naruto. He ate it, she said. Damn it, Naruto cursed as he rushed back to his other teammate. As Naruto picked Teiwai up and shot off, Gaara following behind him, but Naruto was a lot faster. As Naruto was just following his nose, he didn't care who it was, Konoha team, any team at all, even Tamaru's team. He just needed a scroll. As he broke out of the tree line to see some older shinobis, leaf shinobis, the ones that had the spectacle, that boy with the white hair. He slowly put Teiwai down gently as he turned towards the three men. They didn't know what to make of this genin, as he had no idea where he was from. After all, his headband didn't have any village insignia on it. All they saw was number 9 on his forehead protector, as they wondered what that meant as they dropped into their fighting stance. As Naruto lowered himself on all fours, as a bubbling orange chakra came out of his body, as a tail started swaying behind him, 2 ears coming from the side of his head. As Naruto snapped his head up, causing all 3 of them to falter slightly. His eyes were red, and they looked hungry and ferocious. His teeth were fangs. Even when his mouth was closed, they could see it jutting out from his lips, as he snarled at them angrily. As they all prepared themselves for the attack, but nothing could prepare them for when Naruto moved. He was there 1 second, next second he was gone, as he appeared behind one of the ninjas. As Naruto twisted in mid-air around his body, as he slammed a heel right into the man's temple. The man was picked off the ground and his body was sent sailing, as he crashed away into the tree limb. By the time his teammates looked, Naruto was already gone as he appeared behind the other one and slammed the foot into his back. Blood came from the man's mouth as he was sent sailing, rolling like a ball. Kabuto was the only one left, as he quickly sent chakra towards his hand, forming his chakra scalpel. As he twists, showing surprising speed and skill for a genin, hitting Naruto right in the chest. As Naruto staggered back, even in this cloak he felt the blow. One of his lungs had been punctured, and a few of his arteries near his heart had been severed. As Naruto dropped down to the ground, Kabuto shot forward to take off his head. He was sure he couldn't regenerate that. As before Kabuto could do anything though, sand came between them and blocked them. As Naruto had shot through the sand, parting, as he grabbed Kabuto's throat, Kabuto could already feel a burning sensation as he tried to divert oxygen by breaking down the carbon dioxide in his lungs so that he could breathe. As Naruto simply tightened his hold on the man's neck, squeezing tight, his chakra cloak started to recede as the man's eyes rolled back and his body went limp in Naruto's arm. As Naruto searched your pockets immediately, and he found it. It was an Earth scroll. He then quickly rushed back over towards Teiwaya. As Gara looked concerned, she had stopped convulsing, and Naruto wasn't sure if that was good or bad, but at least she was breathing. Now, out of his Kyuubi-infused stage, he picked her up slowly, as he picked her up gently so she wouldn't be uncomfortable as they moved. As he took off at a pace that Gara could match as they made their way towards the tower, the fate of the Konoha team, or Kabuto team, was out of his mind right now. He didn't care about them one bit. The only thing he cared about was Teiwaya. At their pace, they reached the tower in 45 minutes. Every animal that tried to attack them was viciously smacked back by a wall of sand. This brought their time to 1 hour and 20 minutes. Not that Naruto cared that they just smashed the old record of the forest. As Naruto crashed through the doors, paying no attention towards the sign on the plaque. As he looked around, but there wasn't anyone in sight. He looked at the two scrolls, the damn things near the call Teiwaya her life, as he threw them down to the ground. He watched as the scrolls unraveled, and there was a massive smoke that surrounded the area as he coughed. When it disappeared, he noticed a smiling Jonin there. At least he thought the man was smiling. The mask made it very hard to tell, as the man's eye was curved up like an eye smile. However, the smile dropped and Kakashi noticed the condition of the red head in Naruto's arms. As he immediately rushed over and took the girl, as he laid her on a bed in the corner of the room. As Naruto didn't know how tired he was from that fight and this sprint. He may have a lot of stamina, but his body still felt exhaustion. Using the Kyuubi chakra despite her permission, the chakra was still taxing his coils. He did manage to stay awake though to see Kakashi drawing out strange complicated marks around the pattern on her shoulder. Past that, he couldn't remember as he felt his eyelids becoming heavier and heavier as his body dropped down to the ground like a stone. But guys, if you end episode right here, if you want the next part, this to do, like, subscribe, comment down below, and turn on that bell notification to stay posted. Remember, share to all of your friends in your social media platform. And also guys, stay in tune for What If Naruto Had Cosmic Energy, which I do hope that you guys will enjoy over on Anime King 3. And I'll be posting a brand new episode over on Anime King 2 tonight. So stay in tune for that as well guys, which I do hope that you guys will enjoy. And remember, if you're new and this is the first time hearing my voice, and you enjoy the videos on both Anime King 2, and Anime King 3, go ahead and click that red subscribe button and become part of the Anime King family. And thank you for all of your help and your support. Remember to comment down below and tell me if you're new. I'll be replying talking back to all of you. So yeah, without further ado, I'm out for now. See you guys soon. Peace.